For every major news event that occurs, there is almost always a corresponding conspiracy theory to accompany it. Some are completely ridiculous. However, some may contain a grain of truth and may even be completely true. Many have ramifications that would astound you and maybe even change the course of history. Of all the theories out there, about 20 stand out, and if any of these are true, it would have a dramatic impact on our history. In this program, we'll cover the most popular theories and then look at them in depth. One that has persisted for decades is the Holocaust. Between 1941 and 1945, 6 million Jews were killed across Europe in a horrific genocide led by Nazi dictator Adolf Hitler. Despite the fact that the Holocaust is one of the best documented events in history, there are swaths of the population that don't believe it happened, or they believe the death toll has been enormously inflated. One 2014 survey conducted by the Anti-Defamation League of more than 53,000 people across 100 countries found that only 30% of respondents thought historical accounts of the Holocaust were accurate. Respondents under the age of 65 were more likely to say they didn't believe the Holocaust happened as history. Poor education on the subject may be one explanation for this, but some conspiracy theorists push the anti-Semitic notion that the Holocaust was invented or exaggerated to garner sympathy and monetary gain for Jewish people while serving and advancing Jewish interests. Deborah E. Lipstadt, a historian and professor who has written books on Holocaust denial, separates Holocaust deniers into two groups. There are the hardcore deniers who say the Holocaust didn't happen at all, and then the less fervent deniers who may admit the Holocaust happened but question the official death toll or that gas chambers were used for mass murder. Among the more poignant points she raises about Holocaust denial is this question: for the deniers to be right, who has to be wrong? Well, certainly all the survivors, the bystanders, but most of all you have the perpetrators. They never said it didn't happen.
Believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the earth.
Did the CIA have a hand in JFK's assassination? Lee Harvey Oswald was arrested on November 22, 1963, for assassinating President John F. Kennedy Jr. that same day in Dallas, Texas. 2 days later, while being transported to a local jail, Oswald was shot and killed by Jack Ruby, a Texas nightclub owner. This shocking set of events was ripe for conspiracies from the start. Not only was a handsome, popular president fatally shot in broad daylight, the accused assassin was killed days later, inviting speculation about a cover-up. As early as the late 1960s, more than 50% of Americans didn't believe Oswald had acted alone, and as of 2017, 535 reports, 61% of Americans believed the assassination involved a conspiracy of some sort. There are a few main JFK conspiracy theories. One popular theory is that the CIA killed JFK in retaliation for the failed Bay of Pigs invasion to overthrow Cuban leader Fidel Castro. According to a biographer, Bobby Kennedy, JFK's brother and the Attorney General, initially thought a group of rogue CIA agents were involved in JFK's death, though he later reconsidered. Another theory is that Oswald wasn't the lone gunman. People can hardly be faulted for believing this when a House of Representatives Select Committee on Assassinations found that there was probably a conspiracy involving a second shooter. In 1982, another committee called those findings into question, but the theory had already taken root. A third theory, the assassination was actually a mob hit meant to punish Bobby Kennedy for cracking down on the mafia. As for events in the 1960s, in July 1969, astronauts Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin became the first humans to land on the surface of the moon. Or did they? By the 1970s, 30% of Americans believed the moon landing had been faked. Alternative histories soon materialized. In the case of the fake moon landing, William Casey apparently started writing a book. We Never Went to the Moon, America's $30 billion Swindle. He wrote it as satire, but he ended up fully believing the conspiracy. The primary idea in his book was that the footage of astronauts taking their first steps on the moon's surface, which hundreds of millions of people watched live on TV, never actually happened. As recently as 2019, a small survey showed that 10% of Americans still believed that the moon landing was a hoax. Was Princess Diana's death no accident? When Princess Diana, a beautiful young royal outsider known as the People's Princess, was killed in a car crash in Paris in 1997, 1 year after her divorce from Prince Charles, conspiracies immediately abounded. The specifics vary, but the crux of most Diana-related theories is this: the car accident that killed her was not an accident. At the time of her death, she was dating Dodi Fayed, an Egyptian film producer who died in the limo alongside her, who was supposedly planning to propose to Diana the night of the accident. In a court witness statement, Dodi's father, Muhammad al-Fayed, said they were killed because the monarchy couldn't stand the thought of Diana and Prince Charles' sons, heirs to the British throne, having a stepfather who was Egyptian and Muslim. Dodi's father also claimed Diana was pregnant at the time of the crash, though the coroner who examined Diana said she was not. Another theory is that the limo driver, Henry Paul, who was drunk at the time of the accident, intentionally crashed the car. Because Paul was the head of security at the Ritz Hotel in Paris, where the couple had departed from just prior to the crash. Conspiracy theorists believe he might have been on the payroll of a national intelligence service group that wanted Diana dead. Other theorists believe that Diana's medical care after the crash was deliberately sabotaged. For conspiracy theorists in the U.S., this idea arose from the differences between French and American approaches to emergency care. In France, protocol dictates that emergency medical personnel attempt to stabilize a patient before transferring to the hospital. In the United States, getting to the hospital is the first priority. Because Diana was treated at the scene and not immediately rushed to the nearest hospital, some think this is proof she was purposefully killed. Was 9/11 an inside job? In a series of coordinated terror attacks, nearly 3,000 people lost their lives during the events of September 11, 2001, with thousands more injured and over 2,000 first responders eventually losing their lives due to illnesses related to their time working at Ground Zero. On that fall day in 2001, Americans watched, stunned, as two planes hit the Twin Towers in New York City, while a third struck the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., and a fourth crashed into a field outside of Shanksville, Pennsylvania. September 11th took its place in history as the date of the most deadly foreign attack on American soil, upserting Pearl Harbor. Maybe it's because of the scale of loss that nearly 3,000 people could be killed within a few hours on a sunny September morning, or because of the lies that have been told to the American people to sell them on the endless wars that followed the attacks. But the subject of 9/11 has always been a playground for conspiracy theorists. One of the most prevalent theories is that the administration of President George W. Bush did 9/11, or at least knew about it, and let it happen, because the administration wanted to go to war in Afghanistan and Iraq for oil. Many 9/11 theories branch out of the core conspiracy that 9/11 was an inside job. The proof, supposedly, the Twin Towers, that could only have collapsed the way they did as a result of a controlled demolition. Another favorite among conspiracy theorists, the Pentagon was not hit by a plane, but by a missile. A number of prominent figures on the right, including Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, have peddled conspiracy theories about 9/11. According to Slate, InfoWars radio host Alex Jones is one of the earliest and most influential 9/11 conspiracy theorists, and has helped these ideas gain ground. Mass shootings are now common, but could mass shootings like Sandy Hook be false flags? After 20 first graders and 6 school staffers were killed at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Connecticut on December 14th of 2012, Alex Jones used his formidable platform to claim the attack hadn't actually happened. The mass shooting, according to Jones, was completely fake, and the slain children were hired actors. Sandy Hook conspiracies spread far and wide, with some grieving parents releasing birth certificates to prove their children existed. and having to deny requests to exhume their children's bodies. Mass shootings continue to bring out the worst in conspiracy theorists. After the Parkland, Florida shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, it left 17 dead. Survivors were called crisis actors. When a gunman killed 58 people in Las Vegas, theories ran wild that he hadn't acted alone. And no matter where the shooting takes place or how many people are affected, it seems that there's always those who are ready to call it a false flag attack, designed by the deep state to push gun control laws. If this were true, then why aren't there additional gun control laws? Could top Democrats be behind a child sex ring? In October 2016, the emails of Hillary Clinton's campaign chairman, John Podesta, were leaked online. In the emails, Podesta writes about possibly holding a fundraiser at the D.C. pizzeria Comet Ping Pong and mentions ordering cheese pizza. Now, these seemingly innocuous details became fuel for the wild conspiracy that Comet Ping Pong was the headquarters of a child sex trafficking ring run by Democratic leaders, including Clinton and Podesta. Cheese pizza, theorists claim, actually meant child pornography. As in so many conspiracy communities, the emails became a cipher only insiders could decode. A few weeks after Podesta's emails were leaked and Pizzagate started gaining traction online, a 28-year-old man walked into the Northwest Washington pizzeria with an AR-15 rifle. After his search of the premises yielded no dungeon holding child sex slaves, he fired his gun at a locked door before surrendering to police. Although the would-be gunman later told a judge his actions were foolish and reckless, Pizzagate conspiracies continued to proliferate online, becoming the seed for the equally fantastical QAnon conspiracy. In October 2017, an anonymous poster called Q began posting on the messaging board 4chan, claiming to be an intelligence officer in the U.S. government. Q expanded the foundations of Pizzagate. Not only are politicians and Hollywood elites really satanic pedophiles, they also harvest the blood of children to stay young. The only person who could stop them was Donald Trump. After the election of President Joe Biden, some in the Q universe continued to insist that Biden is an illegitimate president, and Trump is ruling from the shadows, from which he will one day emerge to take power after the arrests of everyone, from Hillary Clinton to Tom Hanks to the Pope. There's so much to say about QAnon, including its promoters in Congress. Its popularity among suburban mothers, its role in the deadly January 6th insurrection, and its ties to the wellness industry. But with that said, even Alex Jones appears to have given up on Q. Conspiracies about the novel coronavirus are a dime a dozen. The vaccine implants a microchip used to track people. The fatality rate has been wildly inflated. Bill Gates is not only responsible for the virus, but also the head of a plot to use the virus as population control. These theories have been debunked repeatedly, yet they persist. That might have something to do with the then President Donald Trump saying the virus was no more deadly than the flu and would one day disappear like a miracle without the need for a vaccine. Or it could be related to some Republican lawmakers who floated the idea that COVID could be a Chinese bioweapon. Or it could be just that in a time of historic political polarization, this country was uniquely ill-suited to deal with a catastrophic pandemic that has killed hundreds of thousands of Americans. We all believe in different things, even if we are in the same church or field where there is a common belief. The way we interpret what we believe is the key. No two people look at the same events with the same perspective. The Bible, the holy book of most Americans, is interpreted in various ways, which has generated the different denominations within the Christian religion. No two believers really believe in the same thing, though they will all attest to a common belief in their religion. How we perceive things, such as political events, and how we interpret these events filters through our beliefs and how we manage the reality and truth of the subject. One man may see a president as a con man or a dotard, while another of the same belief may see a savior or a great leader. The perception of a person is affected by the same filters as a historical event or situation. Our reactions to that perception will determine the direction we go. Often, truth is lost somewhere in the middle. Truth and fact may not always be the same thing either. What is true for you may not be true for me. We all create our own truth within us, and this truth is filtered through our beliefs of what we think is true and is not. Facts are just that. It's information based on the actual reality of what happened or what will happen if you do a specific thing. Scientific facts are based on actual reality, whereby a theory is tested from all possible angles, and if the outcome is consistent, then that is a fact. However, science is also fluid, which means a fact or supposition today may change if new information is introduced into the equation. This brings us to absolutes. Often we accept a truth or fact and we no longer explore it. We consider it an absolute and is unchangeable. If new information comes along that would change the perception of that fact or our truth, we ignore it because it doesn't fit the narrative we've accepted. That acceptance is a barrier to any new information that may change our perspective. We accept that candidate B is a liar, and no matter what truth or facts he speaks, we still believe he or she is a liar. Conspiracy theories are often a mix of fact and acceptance. There may be a grain of truth in them, but once other accepted perceptions are tacked onto it, it inflates into something that appears as nonsense to a critical thinking person. Depending on the source of the theory, if that source is trusted, we often ignore any inconsistencies because we want to believe the theory. Or we once again fill in the blanks with more misperceptions to try and explain it. Journalists are tasked with being our eyes and ears when a news or historical event happens. If we are to get facts or truth, we depend on them to supply us with just that. However, in recent years, due to sloppy journalists' work and questionable network integrity, many no longer trust the networks to supply us with the actual reality. So we search for other means to get clarity to events, and this is where we can easily fall into the rabbit hole of conspiracies. Non-credentialed news sources, often presented as only entertainment, are believed more than credited news organizations in a world searching for answers. People often turn to Twitter, YouTube, or other sources to get the news explained to them, and often it's easy to find someone who will spin a tale and tell you what you want to hear. If you are biased to only one viewpoint, then that viewpoint is all you will get. Truth and fact will get lost in the middle. Bolstering is also often used to secure you to a belief. You will hear things like, "If you can't see the truth, then you're crazy," or "This is so obvious, even a blind man can see it." Such statements are geared to make you think that if you don't follow them into the rabbit hole, you are somehow stupid, or so far gone they can't help you, and their theory is being presented as information to help you. You are expected to follow them, and if the information is presented in a way you think is sound, you will. So let's look at some of the more wild theories out there. Reptilians, also called lizard people, are supposed reptilian humanoids, which play a prominent role in fantasy, science fiction, ufology, and conspiracy theories. The idea of reptilians was popularized by David Icke, a conspiracy theorist who claims shape-shifting reptilian aliens control the Earth by taking on human form and gaining political power to manipulate human societies. Icke has stated on multiple occasions that many world leaders are or are possessed by the reptilians. Alien abduction narratives sometimes allege contact with reptilian creatures. One of the earliest reports was that of Ashland, Nebraska police officer Herbert Schreimer, who under hypnosis recalled being taken aboard a UFO in 1967 by humanoid beings with a slightly reptilian appearance, who wore a winged serpent emblem on the left side of their chests. According to British conspiracy theorist David Icke, who first published on this theme in his 1999 work, The Biggest Secret, tall, blood-drinking, shape-shifting reptilian humanoids from the Alpha Draconis star system are now hiding in underground bases, and they are the force behind a worldwide conspiracy against humanity. He contends that most of the world's ancient and modern leaders are related to these reptilians, including the Rothschilds, the Bush family, and the British royal family. Icke's conspiracy theories now have supporters in up to 47 countries, and he has given lectures to crowds of up to 6,000 people. A poll of Americans in 2013 by Public Policy Polling indicated that 4% of registered voters believed in David Icke's ideas. Do we have the technology to make a ship invisible? In 1943, the U.S. government allegedly conducted an experiment to see if they could render a warship invisible. This conspiracy, known as the Philadelphia Experiment, in which the Navy purportedly teleported a destroyer escort from Philadelphia to Norfolk, Virginia, was officially declared a hoax. The story originated in late 1955 when an ex-merchant marine named Carl M. Allen, who claimed to be a witness to the event, sent a book full of handwritten annotations referring to the experiment to a U.S. Navy research organization, and a little later a series of letters making further claims to a UFO book writer. Allen's accounts of the event is widely understood to be a hoax. The U.S. Navy maintains that no such experiment was ever conducted, that the details of the story contradict well-established facts about the USS Eldridge, and that the alleged claims go against the laws of physics. And yet another theory that is often quoted and misquoted is the Bilderberg meeting, a secretive gathering of diplomats and generally important people from around the world. It is real in that there are real actual meetings. Conspiracy theories about it have centered around what exactly goes on during those meetings. The Bavarian Illuminati come up a fair amount of time in relation to the gathering. No one has a clear idea of what is discussed at the meetings. We do know that they do happen, and world leaders are often in attendance. Virag Flight 967 took off from Tokyo in 1973 and was never seen again. The conspiracy around potential foul play arose because the plane was transporting 153 valuable paintings, but neither the plane nor proof of a wreck has ever been found. So this is one that's real. But the problem with these theories is that the older they get, the harder it is to explain them and get to the truth. Evidence and even locations change over time, and though the actual event may have been documented well, the information about the event can get changed with assumption and even outright lies. One of the most common conspiracy theories that exists is, do aliens exist? It's a question that has spawned countless films and TV series, books, podcasts, artwork, and conspiracy theories. But the question of whether or not we are truly alone in the universe remains unanswered. We humans are obsessed with the idea that we're not alone, that somewhere out there in the universe there are other life forms intelligent enough to communicate with us. Or maybe even destroy us. But if there is life out there, why haven't we heard from them yet? Or have we? In 1961, the astronomer Frank Drake devised a calculation that predicted the existence of millions of civilizations out there among the stars. His Drake equation used some fairly speculative assumptions, but it ignited our curiosity. Are we just one small part of a vast cosmic zoo? For physicist Enrico Fermi, the contradiction between this prediction and reality made no sense, and it came to be known as the Fermi paradox. Where is everybody? He wanted to know. There could be an infinite number of answers to this question. There is no paradox, and we really are alone in the universe. Depressing though it may be, sometimes the simplest answers are the most plausible. Or they're ghosting us. Maybe aliens have a policy not to interfere with less advanced cultures, similar to the Prime Directive on Star Trek. They don't live long enough to get in touch with us. Now, this idea, known as the Great Filter, says that no advanced civilization survives long enough to still be around when its neighbors are thriving. For us, threats like nuclear war, climate change, or pandemics might spell our doom. Or they really are here. From Roswell to the Lubbock Lights, there have been plenty of UFO sightings on Earth. Is the government hiding the existence and evidence of this? Or is it fake news? The silence from another civilization is not for want of looking on our part. In 1960, Drake pointed a radio telescope towards two nearby stars and waited for that hotline bling. Instead of intelligent messages, he got a load of static and interference from a secret military experiment. Nevertheless, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, or SETI, was born. Then on the 15th of August of 1977, another SETI program recorded a brief radio signal coming from the direction of Sagittarius. Jerry Eman, the astronomer analyzing the data at the Big Ear telescope that day, was so excited that he wrote "wow" in the margin of the printout. So far, that "wow" signal stands as our most hopeful sign of alien communication. But listening for ET to phone home is a bit like standing by the payphone waiting for the phone to ring. Maybe we have to make the first move. Drake tried this too, sending a radio message towards globular star cluster M13. Known as the Arecibo message, it showed potential aliens our DNA structure, solar system, and some of the biochemicals of earthly life. We also tried sending aliens a greeting on board space probes Pioneer 10 and 11, which included images of humans and directions to our planet. Then, in 1977, we sent a more ambitious message, full of audio and images, on board the Voyager probes. We even included a mixtape of some of our favorite tunes, including Bach, Beethoven, Louis Armstrong, and Chuck Berry, to impress any friendly life forms, or at least the ones with ears. And if that didn't entice them to get in touch, maybe this illustration of humans eating, licking, and drinking might. By now, aliens might know a lot about us, including what we need to survive and how to reach us. And you might be wondering whether it's such a good idea to be broadcasting our location all over the galaxy when we don't know who's listening. It's like shouting in a forest before you know if there are tigers, lions, and bears, said a SETI researcher. Those bears might have planet-destroying interstellar missiles. Putting aside the question of whether we should try to contact aliens, are we even doing it right? These alien societies might be millions of years old, so to them, our radio messages might look as outdated as flip phones or pagers, and even radio. There are plenty of other ways to look for life. We can look for biosignatures. Over time, the biochemistry of billions of creatures can transform a world in distinctive ways. By analyzing the wavelengths of light that come through the planet's atmosphere, we can look for gases that suggest the presence of life. Or we can look for technosignatures. If we do see signs of life on another planet, that won't tell us whether it is inhabited by mindless green slime or sentient city builders. A more reliable approach to look for kindred spirits is to look for chemicals that only intelligent civilizations can produce. For example, city lights. Aliens with night vision as limited as ours might festoon their built environment with artificial lighting, so maybe we could spot cities lit up on the planet's dark side. Aliens may be on the go. Alien spaceships might be easier to spot than their home planets. Maybe we can look for high-powered lasers used to push optical sails, or intense plumes of light generated by an antimatter engine, like those imagined in Star Trek. Or aliens might have built gargantuan engineering projects like a Dyson sphere, named after the physicist and engineer Freeman Dyson, which are swarms of devices around a star that harvest its energy. The Ozymandias effect is another way. The ruins of advanced civilizations doomed by their own technology might have their own telltale signatures. If we find dead civilizations before we find living ones, that might not bode well for our future. If we do make contact with aliens, it would be a decisive blow to the idea that humans are the center of the universe. But how much cooler would it be to discover that we're just one branch of a vast galactic tree of life? UFOs and aliens are often seen, though, so there has to be something to the idea that aliens may be coming here. It would be foolish to assume that we are the only intelligent life in the universe, and if we are not, then maybe they have found an easy way to visit us. So though it may seem this is just another conspiracy theory, we have no way of completely proving it or disproving it. In fact, the odds are they are here. Now, whether or not they are controlling the government or influencing our society directly is the question. Indirectly, the idea of aliens does shape and change our society. There was a time not long ago that hardly anybody believed aliens were real. A few decades later, and now almost no one believes they are not real. So yes, aliens have influenced our society, even if they are only a concept. If they are real and are here controlling our government, then there is ample evidence that within our society, something or someone is doing just that. Rather than invading and taking over through force, it would make sense to control us through some secretive means. More recently, we have had a growth in conspiracy theories, mostly due to a faction calling itself QAnon. So what is QAnon? QAnon was once a fringe phenomenon, the kind most people could safely ignore. But recently it's gone mainstream. In 2020, QAnon supporters flooded social media with false information about COVID-19, the Black Lives Matter protests, and the presidential election, and recruited legions of new believers to their ranks. A December poll by NPR and LPSOS found that 17% of Americans believed that the core falsehood of QAnon, that a group of Satan-worshipping elites who run a child sex ring are trying to control our politics and media, they believe it was true. QAnon has also seeped into the offline world. Followers of the movement participated in the deadly Capitol riot in January, and other QAnon believers have been charged with violent crimes, including kidnappings, assassination plots, and the 2019 murder of a mafia boss in New York. A terrorism bulletin issued by the Department of Homeland Security in late January warned of increasing violence from domestic extremist groups, including conspiracy theory communities like QAnon. A crackdown on YouTube to try and reduce false information, which has played a big role in moving QAnon from the fringes to the mainstream, has said it would prohibit content promoting the conspiracy. QAnon has also made inroads in Republican politics. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, a first-term Congresswoman from Georgia, has become the most prominent QAnon-affiliated lawmaker in the country. Ms. Greene, who posted in support of QAnon on social media, has said she regrets her posts, but continues to promote many QAnon-supported conspiracy theories. Elected Republicans at the state and local levels have also expressed support for QAnon. QAnon is an incredibly convoluted theory, and you could fill an entire book explaining its various tributaries and subtheories, but there are some basic things to know. QAnon is the umbrella term for a set of internet conspiracy theories that allege that the world is run by a cabal of Satan-worshipping pedophiles. QAnon followers believe that this cabal includes top Democrats like President Biden, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, and George Soros, as well as a number of entertainers and Hollywood celebrities like Oprah Winfrey, Tom Hanks, and Ellen DeGeneres, and religious figures including Pope Francis and the Dalai Lama. Many of them also believe that, in addition to molesting children, members of this group kill and eat their victims to extract a life-extending chemical. According to QAnon lore, former President Donald J. Trump was recruited by top military generals to run for president in 2016 to break up this criminal conspiracy and bring its members to justice. Many of these cabal members will soon be arrested, according to the theory, and some will be imprisoned at Guantanamo Bay, while others will face military tribunals and be executed. Since it began, QAnon has incorporated elements of many other conspiracy theory communities, including claims that the assassination of John F. Kennedy, the existence of UFOs, and the 9/11 Truther movement are real. QAnon Anonymous, a podcast about the QAnon movement, called QAnon a Big Tent conspiracy theory because it's consistently evolving and adding new features and claims. But the existence of a global pedophile cabal is the core tenet of QAnon, and the one that most, if not all, of its followers believe. Since the 2020 election, QAnon has become a stronghold of support for the theory that the election was stolen by Mr. Trump. Some QAnon believers maintain that he is still the lawful president, and although some have reluctantly accepted the reality that he is not. So how did all this start? On October 17th, a post appeared on 4chan, a message board online, from an anonymous account calling itself Q Clearance Patriot. This poster, who became known simply as Q, claimed to be a high-ranking government insider with access to classified information about Mr. Trump's war against the global cabal. Q predicted that this war would soon culminate in the storm, an appointed time when Mr. Trump would finally unmask the cabal, punish its members for their crimes, and restore America to greatness. So why is it called the storm? Mr. Trump made a remark with senior military leaders in 2017 that QAnon believers have pointed to as proof of his plan to break up a cabal. It's a reference to a cryptic remark Mr. Trump made during an October 2017 photo op. Posing alongside military generals, Trump said, "You guys know what this represents. Maybe it's the calm before the storm." QAnon believers pointed to this moment as proof that Trump was sending coded messages about his plans to break up the global cabal. So who is Q, and what are Q drops? Q's identity is still unknown, although there have been hints and speculation about it for years. Some speculate that a single internet troll has been posting as Q the entire time. Others say that multiple people are involved in posting as Q, or that Q's identity has changed over time. Making things more complicated is that Q's online home base has been changed several times as well. Q's posts originally appeared on 4chan. Then they moved to 8chan, where they stayed until that site was taken offline after the El Paso mass shooting. They now live on 8kun, a site run by the former owner of 8chan. Each of these sites uses a system of identity verification known as trip code, essentially a username that proves that a series of anonymous posts were written by the same person or people. Drops are what QAnon followers call Q posts. There have been nearly 5,000 of them so far, and most take the form of a cryptid coded message. Many QAnon followers use Q-drop apps that collect all of Q's posts in one place and alert them every time a new post arrives. One of these apps hit the top 10 paid apps in Apple's App Store before it was pulled down for violating the company's guidelines. They then post these drops in Facebook groups, chat rooms, Twitter threads, and begin discussing and debating what it all means. It's like a fun game where you try to figure out what the drops mean, and it can be addictive. Q's account has been quiet in recent months and has posted only a few times since Trump's election loss. Many QAnon believers hope that Q will return one day, although others maintain that the movement no longer needs Q as a central figure. So how many people believe in QAnon? Well, it's hard to say, because there's no official membership directory, but the number is not small and it's probably in the millions. Before Facebook moved to block QAnon content, some popular QAnon groups on the platform had hundreds of thousands of members, and NBC News reported an internal Facebook study that found thousands of QAnon pages and groups operating on the social network, with millions of members between them. Twitter removed more than 70,000 QAnon-affiliated accounts after the January 6th Capitol riot, and some YouTube videos explaining the tenets of QAnon gathered millions of views before they were taken down. And that's just the content that is explicitly pro-QAnon. There are likely millions more people who believe in QAnon-related conspiracy theories like the Save the Children movement that erupted in 2020 after QAnon believers hijacked a hashtag campaign for a legitimate anti-trafficking organization and turned it into a recruiting drive that introduced millions of people to QAnon theories. It's a more diverse group than you might imagine. The earliest adherents were mainly far-right Trump supporters, but in 2020 the movement expanded its reach to include health-conscious yoga moms, anti-lockdown libertarians, and evangelical Christians. Unlike the stereotypes of extremist movements, QAnon doesn't appear to be primarily dominated by young men or people experiencing economic pain. There are Harvard graduates and Wall Street executives who believe in it, as well as people with less elite pedigrees. QAnon has also developed an internal presence and has been embraced by conspiracy theorists and far-right extremists in countries including the United Kingdom, Germany, and Japan. So is QAnon the same thing as Pizzagate? Well, yes and no. QAnon has been described as a big-budget sequel to Pizzagate because it takes the original Pizzagate conspiracy theory, which alleged that Miss Clinton and her cronies were operating a child sex trafficking ring out of the basement of a Washington, D.C. pizza restaurant, and adds many more layers of narrative on top of it. But many people believe in both theories, and for many QAnon believers, Pizzagate was a kind of gateway to the larger world of right-wing conspiracy theories. One new element in QAnon is a number of clear and specific predictions about when and how the storm will play out. For years, Q has predicted that mass arrests of cabal members would occur on certain days, that certain government reports would reveal the cabal's misdeeds, and that Trump would coast to a landslide re-election. None of these predictions came true, but most QAnon believers didn't care. They simply found ways to reframe the narrative and ignored the discrepancies and moved on. Why are some people attracted to the QAnon movement? Well, a common misconception is that QAnon is purely a political movement, but it functions for people who believe in it as both a social community and a source of entertainment. Some people have compared QAnon to a massive multiplayer online game because of the way it invites participants to co-create a kind of shared reality filled with reoccurring characters, shifting storylines, and intricate puzzle-solving quests. QAnon has also been compared to a church in that it provides its followers with a social support structure as well as an organizing narrative for their everyday lives. Adrian Hahn, a game designer who has written about QAnon's similarity to alternate reality games, says that believers open a fascinating fantasy world of secret wars and cabals and Hillary Clinton controlling things, and it offers convenient explanations for things that feel inexplicable or wrong about the world. Even though Q's posts appear on fringe message boards, the QAnon phenomenon owes much of its popularity to Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, which have amplified QAnon's messages and recommended QAnon groups and pages to new people through their algorithms. In recent months, many leading social networks have taken steps to ban QAnon content from their services, citing the theory's potential for offline harm. Facebook and YouTube both announced wide-ranging QAnon bans and removed thousands of accounts, pages, and channels from their platforms. Twitter has banned thousands of QAnon accounts for engaging in coordinated harassment. Several smaller platforms such as Etsy, Pinterest, and Discord have also taken steps to limit QAnon's influence. This has caused anger among supporters who say their freedom of speech is being ignored. Donald Trump is the central and heroic figure in QAnon's core narrative. The brave patriot who was chosen to save America from the global cabal. As a result, most QAnon believers expected that he would easily win re-election and spend his second term vanquishing the deep state and bringing the satanic pedophiles to justice. After Trump's election loss in November, many QAnon believers rallied behind the false theory that the election was stolen from him. Many expected that an inauguration day would happen. Trump would not actually leave office as scheduled, but declare martial law, announce mass arrests of Democrats, and stop Biden from taking office. When that didn't happen, many QAnon believers grew disillusioned, and some even realized that they had been duped. But others continued to believe that the storm was still approaching, and maintained that Trump was still planning a triumphant comeback. It's true that much of QAnon's subject matter is recycled from earlier conspiracy theories and is rooted in anti-Semitic tropes that date back centuries. But QAnon is fundamentally an internet-based movement that operates in a different way and at a different scale than anything that's ever been seen before. For starters, QAnon is deeply participatory, in a way that few other popular conspiracy theories have been. Followers congregate online to decode the latest Q posts, discuss their theories about the news of the day, and bond with their fellow believers. The Atlantic has called it the birth of a new religion. There's also the basic danger that QAnon followers actually believe. It's one thing to have a polarized political discourse with heated disagreements. It's another to have millions of Americans who think with complete sincerity that the leaders of the opposition party are kidnapping and cannibalizing innocent children. Combine these violent paranormal fantasies with the fact that QAnon followers have been charged with committing serious crimes in Q's name, and it's no wonder that people are worried. Scholarly efforts to understand the appeal and consequences of conspiracy theories have yielded a diverse and interdisciplinary literature. It can be argued that conspiracy theories are much more than trivial notions and should be taken seriously for several reasons. First, there are a variety of reasons why a person might adopt conspiracy theories, ranging from personality traits to satisfying complex social needs. People communicate conspiracy theories by many different means, satisfying a broad set of political, psychological, and social motives. Finally, conspiracy theories have effects on both individuals and important societal institutions. Their risks and benefits are far-reaching, and much more research needs to be conducted to fully understand the importance of this pervasive psychological, political, and social phenomenon, especially on the vulnerable. Before you get drawn into the rabbit hole of some extreme idea, always fact-check and never allow a group to persuade you that their truth is the only truth.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5,